This is Monica Perez here with our old friend, good friend, friend in real life, and friend of the show, Lanni from Greener Pastures and Preserving Today. We talked to you not too long ago, but a lot has happened since then.
Yeah.
So lay it on us.
Yeah.
How are
So
you? What are
I'm
you up
great.
to? Yes.
I'm great.
Yes.
It's always good to talk to you and speak to your listeners. Thank you for having me back again. It's my first time on a podcast at all, even my own, since June, early June, I think. And when I was on last time, we talked about birth and birth in the system and outside of the system. And I did not want to disclose at that time that I was indeed pregnant with my third.
Extremely in the
And
extreme.
yes, nearing the end of the road there. Yeah. So I gave birth on July 1st, and now we are a family of 5.
Wow, and I saw pictures of this beautiful little baby. He looks fantastic, really great, super healthy. And I was worried for you because I've never gone the outside the system route, and I had uh, super trauma the first time, my first baby, and I was educated by you that some of that was probably caused by the system, but I was still worried for you. And I'm wondering if now there's a lot of things I want to talk to you about and ask you about. But first things first, I want to hear as much or as little as you are willing to tell about this birth experience.
Sure. So maybe we can start with the pregnancy. I I had you have choices to make when you're pregnant, and you might not know that. People don't know that. I didn't know that during my first pregnancy. I didn't know I had choices to decline some of the screening that is offered by the mainstream medical system. But you indeed do, as you have a voice to decline any kind of screening or any kind of medical pressure that we've had in the last 5 years. And this time I did not have any ultrasound. I did not have any blood tests. I did not have any swabs. I did not have any vaginal exams. I did not have a blood glucose test. I didn't even let them take my weight when I went to the midwife. I did go see my midwife because I liked her very much for my last pregnancy. But I went there mostly to kind of ask her questions and see what would normally be recommended at whatever stage I was in, because I'm so curious about this whole system. I thought this would be a good opportunity to learn more. So I was kind of diving back into all of that when I talked to you last during this last pregnancy. And I think the ultrasound is the biggest one because it's made to seem like it's really necessary and that it's going to be able to prevent or predict or see inside the womb and detect that there is a problem before it is a problem, like you're going to be able to fix it or something. But when you learn more, the ultrasound is not benign. There's actually harm that can be caused by that. It does change cell structure, just like other kind of, energies like EMFs and things like that, microwave. And it can't always see something that's wrong, and it can sometimes see things incorrectly that are not actually there. And so what would you use that information for? And that's the question you have to ask yourself. And that's what I asked myself. I would not have terminated my pregnancy regardless of what they may or may not have found on an ultrasound. So I decided that it didn't make sense to have one at all for that reason and for the potential harm that it could cause. But I do say it was strange because I did have them in both of my other pregnancies.
So this was a long time ago. My son's 22. I got a sonogram and a blood test, and the doctor actually said to me, "Well, this child does not have Down syndrome," and he did.
Yeah.
It was, he's, I don't know if it was, it's not a mild, there's no mild form, but whatever. And the only thing I did not want was a false negative because
And that's what you got.
I was condition white. I was
Mhm.
totally unprepared for what happened. And I also had other people tell me that they got screenings and they were told that there was something very wrong and they had babies who were normal. And then I had another friend who was told, a coworker who was told there was something wrong. And before they even left the office, they had an abortion.
Yeah.
So we never really know about that. So there's false negatives, false positives. They say they're more accurate now. I agree with you. I agree. It did more harm than good for me personally, but I wanted to ask you about the ultrasound. Is that it's something I hadn't even thought of, and it does make sense. And now, um, I've noticed little problems. Little problems that babies are born with sometimes, and I wonder if any of that could be from the ultrasound. Do you know any specifics about what could possibly be ultrasound?
The specifics, but I do know that it's shown to change cell structure. And so what does that mean and how does that present itself later down the road? I don't know. But I do know that it's known to be more harmful when you have it earlier in pregnancy when the fetus is just first forming. And the more each subsequent ultrasound is going to cause more changes or more damage. And the schedule they have for ultrasounds now for even healthy pregnancies is way, way more than they used to be 22 years ago when you were having yours, and even more so than when 40 years ago, when I was born, my mom didn't have one at all. And it's now gone from they have this technology and it isn't always accurate and it can be used in really extreme circumstances when someone's having symptoms that we might want to look into, to now we have to have those every trimester, 3 times in a pregnancy for a healthy pregnancy, and even more so. And they're doing it as early as 8 to 10 weeks to just confirm a pregnancy.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. Yes.
A pregnancy test isn't enough, or having a missed period isn't enough, or
Yeah.
any signs, or just like having the woman ask herself, do I feel like I'm pregnant?
Mhm.
You can say, yes, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I don't need somebody else to tell me.
I had a very early miscarriage, and in order to confirm that I was having a miscarriage, they gave me an ultrasound, and now I'm thinking, if it wasn't a miscarriage, that would have been incredibly early. Like, that would
Yes,
have been,
right. And
really not a lot of cells. If any of them were gonna get zapped,
I
that's not
know.
super
And
cool.
so, yeah, that is another thing where we really over treat. I think in women's health is miscarriages. It's a variation of normal. Not all pregnancies go to term, and
Yeah.
it can happen at any time throughout the
Thank
pregnancy.
goodness, honestly, because a lot of those, they say 1/3 of them are non-viable, like that.
Right, and your body knows that, like, it doesn't function in the way that it's going to sustain life, and it takes care of itself. So that,
Which
I mean, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy, and I'm experienced too myself. They were both early on, and I made the choice to not see a doctor and to not go forward with that, and I free birthed my miscarriages at home, and it was definitely challenging, but I'm really glad I made that decision.
Yeah. I have, my feeling is that IVF has so many birth defects because, in part, not just because of they have multiples and stuff, but in part because you're not going through that, like, initial screening process. So, I guess I would say, as far as a sonogram is, think about what you're trying to achieve. I'm not a big fan of pre-screening anything. Like, I'm not a fan of screening. I feel like there's very little, I'm not aware of any evidence in my life of something I should pre-screen for, that if you're not just kind of aware of your body, you can figure it out yourself. So I guess I would ask yourself, like, why are you doing these sonograms? Like, what is your actual specific goal, and how would it change your behavior and give you a better chance of a better outcome?
Right, and I think most people can't actually answer that question, and most people are moving forward because that's what seems to be the norm, and there's so much outside pressure from family member and friends going, "When's your ultrasound? Is it a boy or a girl?" Or, "Let's see that little black and white picture where you can barely tell what it is, and the baby in the tunnel." It's really hard. It was hard. It was hard to decide how to handle those kind of questions, and both Chet and I kind of spoke to certain people in a way like, "Oh yeah, everything's looking great. Everything's going great." And instead just being vague instead of saying, "No, we're choosing not to." And then other people who might be more open-minded, we would speak to it about, and let them know our choice to not have one. And it seemed like older people, whose kids were 35 and over, they would go, "Yeah, well, I never had any with my kids, and it was a new thing, or I had it with my last kid, but I didn't need it with the
Interesting.
ones before. So we were all having babies before this, and everything was fine." And it's like, yes, we were. And so when you look back at that, it's okay.
I remember, when I was in England, maybe I told you this, I saw a couple of kids with Down syndrome, which you hardly ever see
Yeah.
running around. And I said, "Oh, that's because their national health doesn't pay for prenatal screening." I'm sure they
Mm.
don't. They're kind of
Mhm.
cheap. And not too long after that, which was not too long ago, they changed the rule. And I said, "Oh, they're doing that to get rid of those kids." They changed the rule. So now
Wow.
sonograms are included,
Oh,
because when I was pregnant, they weren't really, I think you had to be over 35 in order to get one.
yeah.
in order for insurance to pay for it or
Right.
whatever. But even so, what is it for, really? It's really
Right.
just for you to have an abortion, if I understand correctly.
That's what it felt like to me anyway, but I think that there's certain things that they look for, especially later in pregnancy, and they try to determine, say, "Oh, your baby's underweight, or it's overweight, or
Yeah.
it's too big or too small, or whatever," so that you can be prepared for delivery. But usually that is to usher you in to have a C-section and to
Mhm.
have, immediately transfer your baby to the NICU, and that's not something that I was interested in either.
Yeah, they do have where they can fix heart defects in utero. I have heard of that. I mean, I
Mm,
don't know anything about it, so I wouldn't know if there are alternatives to that or if there are any outward signs that you could say, "Hey, this baby's too small, maybe we should look at it." So
that's
I'm not
super
gonna say I
interesting. I haven't
know.
heard of
Yeah.
that, and I'm immediately skeptical, but would love to learn more. I do know that
Right.
so many problems that are caused, or the cause of so many problems that in a fetal development is poor nutrition. So that's what you see in history of childbirth, and the problems that we had
Mm.
before, like rickets and other weird stuff. Stuff is
Mhm.
caused because the mother didn't have proper nutrition. It's funny that we can still have those same problems today when we're so overfed, but the food that we're eating is not actually nutrient dense. And so
Mhm.
this pregnancy for me, I felt like, well, I have the best understanding of what real food is. My first one, I was like trying to eat low fat and like
No,
not
my gosh, no,
vegetable oils, heart healthy. And I was like on the
no.
Weight Watchers mindset that I grew up with from my mom. And then my
Yeah.
second pregnancy, I was Weston A. Price. I was drinking the raw milk and
Yeah.
making the sauerkraut, and I had a super healthy baby. So
Yeah.
this one, it felt just really easy just to eat what I felt like I should be eating. Lots of raw beef liver and raw eggs and
Raw
raw
beef
milk.
liver? Raw beef
Yes,
do you
yeah.
sear the outside?
Not at all. No, I from
Ah,
frozen, I just put it in a smoothie because I don't really like the taste. So I found that's
yeah.
the easiest way for me to eat it. And my almost 4-year-old loves it too. So we would just make one big enough for both of us and split it. It was delicious.
Wow, because I do love liver, and I'll just sear it on the outside. I would eat it raw. I'm a little worried. I didn't know that was, like, a thing.
As long as it's been frozen, like deeply frozen for a long time, then there can't be anything that could make you sick.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or fresh, just grab it right out of the animal. You could go for that too.
Actually, I do have a source, a
Mm,
supplier not too
good.
far from you.
Yeah, good.
Anthony Raimondo brought me liver, and then he was mad because he ran out before I did.
Oh,
So he's
yeah.
like,
You
"I
gotta
want some of
ration
that
it. It's
liver back."
important stuff. But
It's
I mean, like,
so
even,
great.
like, tribes and stuff, that's the prized organ.
Yeah.
That would be reserved for women,
Oh,
that were in
yeah.
their childbearing years or pregnant women or nursing women. So
Mhm.
it's like just getting those really big bang for your buck kind of calories that have so many good fat soluble vitamins and all those things that are building blocks to grow a baby. Important.
My mother would take the fat. I guess lean pieces of meat were cheaper.
Mhm.
So she would take the fat off the edges and she'd cut them in equal portions so everybody got some fat of
I
like a
love that
steak.
because
Yeah, oh
see,
yeah,
isn't that
you'd have to
interesting?
get
Because
your
you would
fat.
pay
She'd pour
more
the
for the good
blood,
stuff,
yep, pour the
and
blood on
then
your
now it is
potatoes.
the lean ground beef or whatever, the
Yeah,
99% fat-free,
yeah,
disgusting ground beef
yeah,
is now more expensive. It's so
but
strange.
and for like liver and onions, she would just she's like, "Makes you feel like $1,000,000, a
It
million
does.
bucks." And even the day before she died, I was kinda feeling lazy, and I sent my brother out to the store to get, like, a couple little filet mignons because I thought she would eat it, and I was just so lazy, and I was like, "Ah, I gotta make her this," and so her last thing was because she would always say, "I feel like $1,000,000," like, soon as she ate something like that, and she couldn't even I gave her such a little amount, she couldn't finish it, and I was like, "Oh, this is not
Oh, that's not a
good."
good sign,
But
yeah.
still, she was
Yeah,
95, like, she made it to that, like, second to last day,
yes.
but I always think of the things that she used to do, and another thing she used to do was she was Irish, and she just would eat potatoes, she did not eat grains, we never had rice or any of that, there were
Yeah,
just no grains, she just not on purpose, she would eat bread, she ate bread, but
mhm,
you'd have a potato and meat and potatoes for dinner.
yeah, and it's so much to be said just eating what maybe your genetics are telling you to eat, and then so, like,
Totally.
what your family history is could say a lot to that if you know it, think about what your family was historically eating and what was quick to them. Like, my mom's, first generation Italian American, so I like pasta. I don't know if it's the
Wow,
best thing
is she
for me,
first?
but it's
Oh.
good. Yeah.
That's a rare resource into cooking, but yeah, I'm not, and so I'm really not into pasta, but I love sauerkraut, I like Stunge, like all
Mhm.
my grandfather was a German butcher, meat cutter,
Yeah.
Fleischgeschäft, so that and, the Syrians, I like myself some rolled cabbage and I like some dates, but my grandma was an orphan, so I don't have too much of that, but yeah, it's true, everything I like and know about, know what's good for you, know when to eat it, was heirloom information, which I know
Totally.
you're rebuilding for us all now.
Trying my best.
One quick question. So I remember, and my answer for you, I'm sure, is no, but they really push those prenatal vitamins on you.
Oh, yeah, they do.
And I would never take them. I was like, the last thing I want is to just have this baby on a constant wash of artificial vitamins. And then what are their needs going to be for the rest of their lives? And I looked, and if a baby is overwhelmed with vitamin C, and he may verify this, but he may actually have a higher requirement for vitamin C in his
Oh,
life.
that
Like
makes
that's
sense.
what I was worried
Mhm.
about. I
Yeah.
that's
Build up a tolerance,
yeah,
it's like, if he had a Coke habit, he would have a higher tolerance
yeah,
too,
just
I'm sure.
never. And that's another thing I learned from my mother who's like lived in virtual poverty, like less is more. Don't know.
Yeah, and I think that the synthetic vitamins, they don't absorb first, they don't absorb the same way they do as when they come in the nice package with the food, and there's all these cofactors, and you have to be freaking
Cofactors.
scientist to understand which ones you have to take when with the other thing and what food or away from other kind of food. And none of them are the same as what's found in nature. You can get whole
Yeah.
food vitamin C, magnesium is the exception. I take magnesium occasionally when I have, muscle cramps or other things like that. And potassium I get from aloe juice, which this is water, but this is the
Yeah.
brand of aloe juice that I buy.
Coconut too. Coconut
Coconut
water
water
has
too, but it has a lot of
potassium.
sugar. Aloe
Yeah,
juice
it
has no
does.
sugar in it,
Yeah.
none at
Okay.
all, and it's loaded with potassium. So if
Wow,
you
it's
have
very hard to get
a
an easy supply of potassium because they won't sell it in supplements even if you wanted it, and I've been looking for it, so and the coconut does have a lot of sugar. I will have
yes,
to look into that for
Lakewood,
sure.
is the brand, Lakewood Organic Pure Aloe, and it's just aloe and lemon juice, not citric acid, lemon juice, so that's why I chose this brand,
Oh,
and, yeah,
interesting.
and
Which
so for
brand?
potassium, Lakewood is the brand. I can send you a link. They do
Thanks.
I think they have it at Whole Foods, yeah, and my local co-op,
So
so
you're gonna I know your answer to Cat right there. Read the
what
question.
See, you can't I don't think you can. You could find somebody you trust who knows more than you and decide to trust them, but can you really know? And I would say, okay, then there's a other thing called, I think it's Camu Camu, Camu. It's like a berry and it's loaded with vitamin C. So you can get a Camu Camu powder and add that if you want a vitamin C. So that's what I used if I felt like I needed extra vitamin C. So there's all these ways in nature to get it, either from eating a whole food or from eating a dehydrated food. And that's what I went for instead of, and like drink my raw milk every day, had raw egg yolks, beef liver, all of that.
So I'll tell you a couple of things I found out about really high concentrations of stuff that I super need. One is one Brazil nut a day. You don't even have to
Yeah.
have milk this. A one Brazil nut a day will keep this girl in a bottle of wine because it will give you everything your liver needs. That selenium that your liver needs. And if you eat too many, that's bad for your heart. So
Mhm.
I eat one Brazil nut a day. I eat a spoonful of natto every day. I love it. People think it's absolutely gross. They run and scream, but it has a crazy amount of vitamin K, which gets the calcium into your bones, but out of your arteries and
And that's a
out of your
fermented food,
joints.
isn't it? That's
Yeah,
that's like a mold.
it's soy. People don't like that it's little shrunken soybeans, but I'm taking that. I just don't eat soy except for that because
It
no
is,
vitamin
it's there's
K.
so
Yeah.
much to be said, like, certain foods need to be soaked, sprouted, fermented, those things are gonna make them more nutrient dense, and it's interesting because the bacteria in fermented foods actually build certain nutrients and vitamins when they're doing their thing. They can do that in your gut and build those things that you need, they can also do that in the food. So you take that soybean and you present it with this certain spore and it grows like that, then it's got that vitamin K that you need, it's pretty fascinating.
And a lot of times that will offset some of the anti-nutrients. A lot of foods have
Yes.
anti-nutrients in them that kind of prevents absorption. I think or but anyway, but there's another thing that natural cottage cheese. I get a cultured cottage cheese is a tremendous source of iodine. Really
Oh, yeah, yeah.
tremendous source of iodine. More than I like cheese for that reason too, but so those are 3 things that are fabulous sources of stuff that we really, really need, and otherwise, you have to eat a lot of food, but in these, you don't have to eat a lot. You
No,
can
that's why the
move
animal
on.
sources of these things are so much
Yes,
easy to
concentrated,
yes,
yes.
and
Magnesium is in, I think it's in the animal fat. I think it's in
I
beef
think it
fat
is, yeah, I think most things are
and egg
yeah,
yolks, yeah.
egg yolks, are great, and eggs especially important for I think it's choline that's in eggs that is so
Mm.
important for pregnancy, so that's something that I tried to focus on. Also, like, oysters and sardines
Oysters,
and all
yes.
that different kinds of seaweed and stuff like that I would just sprinkle dulse. I would sprinkle on my food for iodine and other trace minerals, using good salt, drinking good water, all of those things.
Folic acid, where were you getting that?
I don't even remember which one that is, so I wasn't
Folic
worried
acid
about
is
it,
the one
but
that
it's like the most
prevents
because they told
yeah.
me so many times, I was like, "Meh." Like,
No, there's a guy, Jonathan Emord, who took the case to the Supreme Court because the FDA would not allow people to talk about the fact that folic acid, prevents spina bifida,
yeah,
and
it's
many
a
people
neural
thought
tube defects, and
yes.
then I think the thing is, and I can't remember which is which. There is folic acid and there's folate, and I think
Oh.
one of these is what they're giving you in a supplement, and the other is what your body actually needs. And I
Oh,
can't remember which one's
interesting.
which, but the whatever the whole food version of it is comes in a lot of these things we're
That's what
already
I was gonna
talking
say, it's
about.
malnourished people, that's the
So I
problem.
remember it was one of those things. I only have so much space in my brain for information, so I looked at it and go, I don't have to worry
Yeah.
about that one. Checked it
Legumes,
off the
leafy
list.
asparagus, stuff that
Yeah.
I've seen you
I
grow
was
eggs,
thinking beans,
F
but
it,
I
eggs
think
have it.
eggs. Eggs
Eggs,
have
forget about.
everything. It's the perfect building block for life. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And
riboflavin, I think is
good,
another.
well-fed chickens, important too.
Yeah, asparagus, a half a cup of asparagus you could eat a cup of asparagus, beans, peas, all this stuff. Yeah, you're right, it's somebody who's malnourished, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah,
Perf,
for sure.
perf.
So
So,
yeah,
alright,
that
that's
was
how you took care of
the
yourself. Okay,
pregnancy.
cool.
Yeah, I did see a midwife. I went a few times. I skipped some of the appointments. I liked the idea of having because the birth I was leading up for was going to be something that was outside of the system. I liked to have somebody that operated partially outside of the system, although licensed by the state. She has a lot of experience and I have a trust with her already. She was present for my last birth for 15 minutes before when I called her. In 15 minutes, the baby was there.
Really?
Yeah, I waited till the very last second to give her a call that last time. And I just wanted to know that if I was concerned about something during the birth, that we had someone to call before we were calling 911 or going
Right.
to the hospital. That was important to me. So that's why I chose to see her through my pregnancy. And that I knew that I could call her if I wanted to for any reason. So I was just making sure that this was my choice and I knew who I wanted to be around me during my birth. And if I changed my mind at any point, I had these resources. So that's kind of what I was building during my pregnancy. And I did that. And it was great. So I was due on July 2nd. And I think it was June 20th. I thought I was going into labor. And then it kind of fizzled out in the middle of the night. On June 28th, I thought I was going into labor. Big contractions. That time, I actually thought I was in transition because you start shaking, like you shake internally, like it's hard to explain. And I was like, that's happening with these contractions. And then I was in the worst mindset and I was just like, no, I don't want this. I don't want to do this. The kids were at my mom's and we were going to just relax. And I was mad
Oh, yeah, I
that
know
like
what you
date night was
mean.
taken away. So I was like, I
It's
don't want to do this. And it just stopped. So I really
wow.
feel like I was going to go into labor that day and have the baby and I stopped it. So then on the 1st, July 1st, I was sure I was gonna have the baby in June before July, and now it's July 1st, I'm like, "Am I ever gonna have the baby? What's happening?" I've been having contractions on and off, like
When was how was that overdue?
no, July 2nd was the due date, so it
Got
was
it.
the day before, and then it was like, I just need to distract myself and not think about it and just work through the contractions as I'm having them, so invited my 10-year-old's friend over, I had extra kids there, we were working outside and in the kitchen, and then it was probably 3 o'clock when the friend was going home. His dad was there to pick him up. I was back and forth to talk to the dad, and then running to my room to have a contraction by myself,
Oh
and then
my
go back out. And I was like, this
wow.
feels different. I think I'm going to call my mom and ask her to pick up the older kids because we had decided we didn't want the older kids to be there.
Yeah.
As much as I kind of would like them to witness it, I didn't
Yeah.
want to be distracted by them. I wanted to really be
Oh,
able to
yes.
go into
Okay.
it.
Got it.
And I didn't think I could shut the part off of myself where I felt like I needed to take care of them, and
Yeah,
I really wanted
right.
to focus.
You
So
would have
I
to
called
focus.
her and I said, "Could you pick them up at 5?" And she said, "Yes." And at 4 o'clock, I was like, I should have told her to come right now because it was really intense. And
Oh,
the
wow.
kids were talking to me, and I was helping pack bags, and I was trying to get Chud to come back inside from working.
Do you
I
call him Chud, like, locally?
No, I
Okay.
mean,
I
once in
mean,
a
that
while I
I
do.
don't remember you calling him yeah.
no, but that's I mean, that's Paul. It's a super secret
What?
name,
Don't
but
tell anybody. Don't dox him. Are you crazy?
it's such a normal name. But yeah,
Jeez, I'm
Chud,
writing that down. I'm taking that out. You
cool,
are
cool, cool
crazy.
husband, uncle, and dad. So, I have a
Oh,
friend.
cute. That's
Yeah,
cute.
yeah. I have a friend here locally who is apprenticing, I guess you would say, with a midwife who has a real freedom mindset. She's also had experience as a doula, but we're just really good friends, and she loves my kids. And I decided I'd invite her to be present for the birth if I felt like it that day, and I did. So we gave her a call and told her that I was in labor. My mom picked up the kids at 5, and then it was probably we
Was your
called
mom
her.
sweating or was she
No,
fine
she's
with it?
just like, "Okay, have fun. It's gonna be another false alarm. You're just saying this so that I'll take the kids
Oh,
for the
great.
night."
Perfect. Because you wouldn't want her fretting,
No,
so
I
it
don't
was
want her
good that
thinking
she didn't
negative
yeah,
thoughts somewhere else,
yeah.
and because 'cause we'd had the 2 false alarms, she thought I was just milking this so that I
Perfect.
could have
Great.
more, better sleep, time to
May I ask
myself.
how old she is?
She is 73.
Okay.
Yeah, so she
I'm
she
just trying to
waited to have me a little ways, and I waited to have
place
kids a
her
little ways, so
in the
yeah, it's hard for her to
generationally.
with the, 3.5-year-old for sure, but she
Yeah.
does great. So fortunate to have her help. Um, so she wasn't worried, and I was, I got really emotional when my 10-year-old was leaving, and I was like, I just hugged him and I started crying, and then I
Wow,
had to take a
why?
space to have another big contraction. I was like, there's gonna be a baby here when you come back. And like
Yeah.
I kind of realized it. It was very emotional. So they leave, and then it's ramping up, and then I tell Chud that we should give my friend a call, and she said she's unloading her car, and then she'll head right over. She gets there at like that was probably at 6. She gets there at like 6:58. Okay, so just before 7 p.m. I'm really in it. I'm like in a nightgown now, and I'm like this. I don't think I'm getting out of this. All different positions, all over the every. I have to move after every contraction, and
Are
they're
you super sad and in pain, either of
I
those?
mean, like, they're really intense. I'm not sad at all. I'm really focused. They're like,
Right.
"Okay." And I'm, like, talking in between each contraction. "Okay, this is a big one. That wasn't comfortable. I'm gonna go lean against the wall." Or, "This next one, I'm gonna lay on my side on the bed because 'cause I'm just so tired." And the contractions weren't that long, but they were really intense and then really close together. And that changed from having one sporadic one every now and then to having them, like, right on top of each other. From that 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. time, it was like just kind of constant. So I was getting tired. So my friend that came, she was like, "Let me try a hip squeeze." So we tried that. So doulas know they squeeze your hips really hard in the one spot when you're having a contraction, and it feels so good. It like
Oh,
helps
really?
the back pain so much. It feels so good. So she did that a couple times, and then I was laying on my side having a contraction, and my water broke like the movies. It was splash. It was so
Oh my
big.
gosh, really?
Yes. I was like, "Whoa," all over my
Wow.
friend.
Oh,
And
no.
yes, I was like, "You've been anointed," and
On, like, on rugs and stuff? Where is
well, I
that?
had, I so the midwives teach you how to make your bed before labor, so we'd already had the bed made. So you have the sheets you wanna sleep on that night on your mattress, already a
Got it.
mattress
They put
protector on my
plastic
mattress
over it. Yeah,
anyway,
okay.
and then we put, like, a shower curtain over that, and then
Yeah.
another fitted sheet over that, and then blankets that you don't care about on top. So you feel like you're in the cozy bed, but then you have all this stuff that you can wash, and then the
Okay,
shower curtain to protect your mattress and your good sheets.
okay.
So that
I'm
was already
already
set up.
exhausted. I already wanna peel all that stuff off and sleep in the sheets.
I know, well, that's what you
Right
get to do at the end of it, so it's so worth it. And then part of the reason I had my friend there is because I know she would just I didn't even have to do anything. I got up and I said, "I wanna be in the bathroom," because what are you gonna do when you're, like, leaking fluid everywhere? You wanna go to your bathroom. So, went to the bathroom, and she stripped the blanket that was wet off, went and put it in the wash. It was like all the washer was going. I had some contractions in the bathroom, and Chud was like snuck outside to do a chore for the chickens that he knew he needed to do before he really got into it when my water broke. So he wasn't there for
Oh,
that part.
good.
So he was sad he missed it. She calls him in, and then that was 7:05. No, 7 o'clock on the dot. So 2 minutes after she got there, then I'm having contractions in the bathroom until I'm like, I'm pushing now. So just after the water breaking, I realized my body was pushing. So you don't have to have anyone yell at you
Right.
to push. It just happens
Yeah, you
when the
cannot
baby is
stop that.
engaged in
Yeah.
its right spot. It gives you the urge to push. So,
I
it's not even the urge to push, it's just doing it for you.
I didn't do those classes. I went to a couple. I was like, "There's absolutely
Mhm.
no chance on earth I'm ever doing natural childbirth. Like, I don't wanna do this." My mother-in-law is a kinda like a doula, whatever, and
Mhm,
just
right.
pressuring me to do all this. I was like, "No, I don't want anything to do with that." And I accidentally had natural childbirth, which was insanely
Wait,
painful.
that
I
your
had to
second?
Yes, and I
Yes.
I had to remember, like, "Don't ever do this again. This is awful." But what I will tell you, sorry, I'm not trying to spoil it for anyone because
No.
it actually, after the fact, I know I've told you this, my clarity and the baby and everything, it was actually worth it. It
Oh,
was
yes.
actually
Oh,
worth
yes.
it by a lot
Mhm.
because I was sick for days. The drugs they give you make you sick for days, so you think you're tired, but I was as soon as that baby came out, I was, like,
No, it's like
fine.
euphoria, and you're like, yeah, you're having a conversation, you can get up and use the bathroom,
But
it's amazing.
But you couldn't stop that process if you wanted to.
No,
They're
I could
like,
not.
"Breathe and push and whatever." I'm like, "I
No, they
have no
know,
idea what
yep.
you're talking about." And boy, did it hurt. I was screaming my head off. It took about an hour as my husband's eating like a strawberry or a rainbow ice pop, and you can't have any liquid because 'cause they're like, "You're gonna choke to death."
Oh gosh, yeah, so
Is
I'm
that not
drinking
true?
water, you
Oh,
do whatever
wow,
you
good for
want to,
you. Yeah,
and
it's the
it's
yeah,
only because they're preparing you for surgery. They want you to not have
right,
fluids or
which
food in
is
your
true.
system
Yeah,
because they don't want you to choke or, if
yeah, that's
asphyxiate if you're
definitely
having a
true.
C-section.
That
So
was as
yeah,
bad as the pain, the thirst, but I will tell you, that thing just shoots out. I didn't even know, like, the placenta also just shot
just
out,
comes
like,
out,
it just
yeah, you don't
there's
have to do
nothing you can
anything.
do about it. There's
So
nothing you
with
can
the
do.
water, like, it's a good point. It's great to just keep drinking. It takes a lot out of you to do this. You're losing a lot of fluid. You're going to lose blood. You want
That
to
was
stay
terrible. That
hydrated.
was the worst part.
Yeah, and then also you want to keep, using the bathroom as normal because if you hold your pee for a long
Yeah,
time, it just makes it
yeah.
longer to use the bathroom after you've had the baby, and then the women in the hospital end up needing a catheter, and that's
Oh,
like not
totally.
fun
Yeah,
at all.
definitely.
So
That
I was drinking and going to the bathroom, and then so between 7 and 8 o'clock, I was having mostly contractions in the bathroom, and then I eventually was like on the floor in the bathroom, and we had put towels down, and I asked them to
Wow.
bring me pillows that I had
Yeah,
special cases on and stuff,
okay.
so that I could lean on them, and I was on my knees, and
Wow.
I could feel the head crowning, and I was pushing, and it wasn't moving. So with the last baby, I once I felt the head, the next contraction, the whole head was out,
Yeah.
and then the next contraction, the whole body was out. With this one, he was just stuck with just the crown of his head out. And I asked for a hand mirror and I looked and I could see this ridge on his head. It almost looked like his umbilical cord was draped over his head and it was weird and I was feeling it. I was like, I felt weird. That was his head. It was the modeling, I think they call it. The skull is not fully formed for a
Right,
reason
right.
so that it could
Yeah, yeah,
overlap.
definitely, yeah,
So
mhm.
it was the ridge of his skull being,
Yeah,
like, compressed in there. It was so
yeah,
cool.
that's why they're cool. I'm already panicking. I'm in a
So
complete panic.
he's stuck there, like, I wouldn't have used the word
Don't
stuck
call
at
me
that
next
time.
time because
No,
I'm
I
not
would
gonna
not. No. But
no
I'm
one
like,
should call me under
I
these
think that's
circumstances.
the point in the hospital when they're like, "Oh, no, you're not progressing. This stop
Yeah.
pushing. We need to get a
Well,
C-section.
they
He's too
panic
big."
you. Yeah.
Right? Or they're stuck. Okay? Whatever. He wasn't stuck. But I remember the next one, I think I got, a couple more. I got him out to his eyes, like his brow. And everyone's like, "Okay, yes, now we can see it's definitely a head." And everyone, it's just my husband and a friend. And
Yeah.
I I have this feeling I'm like, "Don't touch him. Stop touching him." And they're like, "We're not touching him." And I realized, that's him moving. I could feel him moving his body to
To
get
get
unstuck.
out.
And I was like, he is this is his birth.
No
Like, this is
way.
my birth experience, but this is his birth. And I was like, and we're working together. So then all of a sudden out loud, I'm audibly having a conversation with the baby. And I'm not thinking about who else is in the room and I can't stop talking. I'm like, "You can do this. You're doing such a good job." And then all of a sudden, something in my head was like, "Put your leg up." And I just moved my leg up like in this exaggerated lunge position and kind of turned my torso to the side a little bit. And in my next contraction, it came out to his chin. And I was like, "Okay." And then I could feel him moving. I was like, "Oh, I wish you would stop," kinda because it hurt when he would move in between
Oh, that's
contractions.
what hurts maybe,
It's like, well,
because
the
it can
the
hurt,
well,
yeah.
like, I mean, the whole thing
Well, I
is
mean,
hurting
ripping
at
you
that
apart
point,
hurts, but
right? Yes,
sometimes, like, it hurts your back and you're like, "What's going" you wanna move. You
right?
wanna move, but
You
maybe
need
it's
to
them
move.
moving.
So you don't need to
Oh,
be
and
on
you
your
should
back,
move.
and you should be moving
Alright.
because that's how you guys are gonna work through this together, right? But with him like, you have a contraction and then there's a little break from the pain or discomfort. I wasn't getting breaks in between because he was moving and I was so aware of it. So he's moving and then I'm in this lunge position and then another contraction and his head is out. And then I get one more to his chest and I get stuck at the chest. And this is the part where I was like, I cannot believe he's still stuck. And so part of me was like, okay, why don't you call the midwife? Because I thought if there's a problem, she'll be there soon and she might know another move for me to do or something. And what will probably happen is he'll be out before she's there and everything will be fine. And that's what I wanted anyways. I had decided I wanted to call her after the birth to come and just help clean up and
Yeah,
weigh him and like that
yeah.
kind of stuff,
You're
right?
gonna be tired, yeah.
So as I'm stuck at his chest, I have another contraction and I
So his
hear,
chest, so you're saying his shoulders were out?
yes, his shoulders were out. I was hit at his chest. From what
Because
I couldn't see it, but that's what everyone says, right?
my natural one, my daughter, her they didn't tell we didn't
The
realize it for a
shoulder
couple
got
of weeks.
stuck and she broke the collarbone,
Yes,
right?
yep,
Yeah.
and that's one thing that I worry about because people can get real damage that way, and
Yeah, and
if it
there's so
doesn't break,
many.
you have to break it. They
My
break it.
question is, did they break her collarbone to get her out, or did her collarbone break when she was coming out? And were you on your back when you were
Yeah,
delivering her?
definitely on my
Because
back. They
yeah,
do have a policy of breaking the collarbone.
right, and that's why I'm
So it
like,
is possible they did it, and
which
it was a woman I didn't know. The doctor was a
mhm.
woman I did not know,
So it's
and it
like
was her
that.
last birth ever. She was
Oh, wow.
retiring, and she was on call,
That's
so she wouldn't have told me if she did.
no, and I mean, like, I think that people
Interesting thought,
if you
because I
can
never saw her again, and it took us 2 weeks to figure it out. She would have probably said it if she didn't do it, she probably would have said,
I
"This
know,
baby
right?
has a broken
Yeah,
collar." Yeah.
right, or if she intentionally did it and then just forgot to write it on the paperwork and then she's gone, you know what I mean? There's so many too many cooks,
It was
but
weird. It was
it
weird
is
that this
weird,
little girl would have
and how
her
can you, like,
shoulders
start
broken.
your life with, like, a broken bone? It's so
Oh, when you look at
sad.
the pictures, it's super sad. I didn't know what the hell I
Mm,
was doing, swaddling her
yeah,
for
aw,
2 weeks.
aw.
Poor thing.
So for me, I think that it was so important to be able to listen to my body and to his signals so that I was able to move
Yeah.
into positions that were working with him. Really cool part is when it was stuck at his chest and I had another contraction. He didn't move at all, and I just squeezed him.
Oh,
And both
boy.
Chud and my friend were like, "Oh my gosh, there's so much fluid." And it's
Coming out.
all the fluid coming
That's
out of his mouth
why a
and nose.
C-section is bad, and that's probably just what that was for.
And I was like, "That's so cool. Good
That's
job,
what
buddy." I'm
they
like,
do,
I'm
yeah.
just, good job, And then I'm like, another push, and
That's
I was like, "Get
great,
ready to
wow.
catch him." And I can look between, through my legs back at Chud's hands, and the baby comes out, and he grabs him, and I do this cool ninja kick over his head to flip over to sit in a sitting position. And I look at him, and I was like, "You're not a girl," because I was thinking
Snap.
he was a girl like the whole time. Because now we have three
Uh,
boys. But there was his
uh,
puffy little balls, and I was like, "That's not a girl at all." And then, he didn't really cry. He was breathing and he took a breath and I held him and he was breathing. And then it took him a minute and he let these like really gentle, like kind of sounds out, and no gurgling or anything because he had just been cleared
wow, that's
out.
so
And
awesome.
he was just there. His color was good. And I'm taking all this in. No one's saying anything still, which I had asked ahead of time. You know, while Chad was crying uncontrollably, to be
Out of
honest, he was just
relief
bawling. No, he
or
was
just
so like
joy?
just joy, like just sheer joy. You did like how good of a job I did and how beautiful the baby was, just crying. And then I'm like
And
quick.
yet he's a he has "Chud" tattooed on his hand, like, this is not a crier.
And
He's
he
not a
tattooed it
soy boy.
himself.
And
No,
what?
his and he
It's
tattooed it himself. It's
oh, wow! I
homemade.
didn't even
It's
know that.
homemade. But yeah, he's not a wuss, but he's a deep feeling person, and he was really present during all of that with me. And it was really amazing for both of us.
How was your, state of cognition? Like, were you in a morphine wash, an endorphin wash, or were you really able to, engage to know would you have been able to well, I guess adrenaline would have kicked in, but you were observing him. Were you clear-eyed?
So I think okay, so when you're progressing through labor, near the end, your body does have a huge surge of adrenaline, and they say that's because
Adrenaline.
the woman can be then brought out of this
Yeah.
weird spell that you're
Yeah.
in to be present to take care of the baby. So yes, absolutely. The weird part with me with this progressing so quickly, I kind of never left myself. I was really in my body that whole time.
Okay.
Whereas with my previous labor throughout the day, I kind of drifted off and was really kind of like went to another realm for a long time. Kind of like an acid trip. It's like weird. This time was super focused and in it. I was talking the whole time. I knew what I needed to do. And so after he was born, I did forget this very exciting part. I just picked him up and I put my mouth on his mouth without even thinking. And I just did this little, like, kind of a hard kiss and then spit. And it was like there was a little bit of fluid in his mouth, and I took care of that, and then that's when he started breathing. So that's just before his birth.
Wow!
It was like this I was just kissing him in my I mean, it's hard to explain, but
Yeah.
it was like
You
I
had
just
an
went for a
instinct to do
kiss, and
that.
it
That's
just was this different
crazy.
kind of a kiss than I've ever given before, right over his little mouth, and then he was breathing, and he was fine, and I was I was noticing his color. I was noticing his tone, which is how he's moving. I was doing the APGAR test without, like,
Right.
putting a score
Right.
to it, you know?
Right.
His eyes were open and alert. He was breathing, he was making sounds, he was moving, his color was good. It was, it was really remarkable. And so then probably 15 minutes of sitting on the ground just, in total awe, and Chud crying and, like, telling me how awesome I was, and my friend starting to clean up, or continuing to
Nice.
clean up,
Good girl.
and it wasn't that messy. I don't remember seeing blood. It's just like
Right. Right.
there's it's mixed with the amniotic fluid. It's not like someone had an accident, it's
Right.
it's
Like a
there, but it's
miscarriage
not
is like
so.
that, though.
Yes, it is. It is. So it wasn't so intense all of that right away. And I'm sitting there on the ground starting to get uncomfortable and I'm like, I want to move.
So
So
he's there attached to the umbilical
he's
cord.
there and my placenta's still inside.
Right.
And it's
And he's
plenty
still
long to
attached
have
to
him
the
and
placenta.
he's attached to the placenta. Yeah. So I don't know, 15, 20 minutes there, then the midwife shows up and I'm like, "Hi, he looks really
Great.
good. His color's good." I'm telling her that he's fine because the last thing I want is to someone to walk in
Panic.
and feel like there's something wrong, and she wasn't. She was exactly what I expected her to be and why I would invite her into that space, and she was just like, "Oh, he looks so great. You did so good. I figured you weren't gonna call me," like, even though we'd never talked about that, she kinda
Right.
just
Right.
knew
Right.
that I like privacy and I wanted to do this on my own. So then I wanted to get up and move to the bed. So they get, there's like puppy pads. They're called Chuck's
Yeah.
pads in the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. I
They have
know.
those. I bought those ahead of
Have
time.
those.
They're
Yeah.
they're spread out on the bed, and they hand me one to kind of put under me to catch the placenta
Yeah.
as to in case it falls out when I stand up, which it did. So I didn't
Ah!
have to
Did
do
it
anything.
splatter everywhere?
Nope, I caught it
'Cause
in Chuck's
that
pad
is what
under. I'm
happened
holding
to
the
us. Yeah.
baby.
It
I'm catching
splattered.
my placenta, and I'm standing up, and then I walk with it all to the
Are
bed,
you
and I
just
sit
butt
down.
naked at this point?
Oh, yeah, and I
Oh
do
my
not do
gosh,
that in
that's
front of my friends.
crazy.
I did at one
But
point,
childbirth will do that to you, like, people just
yeah,
walk by, you're, like, facing the door, people
you're
walk
like,
by
don't
like,
even care.
looks good,
So
right
this was
on."
just
Like,
me,
"Oh."
you know, when my water broke, my nightgown got all wet, and so when I
Yeah,
went in the bathroom, I took it off and I yelled out, I was like, "If anyone comes in here, I'm naked now."
yeah,
So
it's
it was just
over.
that's your warning, that's all you get. So I go to the bed with him, and Chud sits down next to me, and everybody leaves the room, and just the three of us sit in our room. Like, you have to realize, like, when I realized I was in labor was 5 p.m. No one got there until 7 p.m. and I had the baby at 8. This was
Wow.
really fast, super fast. As far as, like, yes, I was kind of in labor for
Yeah,
weeks
yeah,
before
right,
that,
right,
but
yeah.
the actual time it was like 3 hours. It was really short. And
Wait,
so me and Chud and the baby are just sitting there just like, whoa, like, who are you? What's your name? And then I try to
where's the
nurse.
placenta? Where's the placenta at this point?
The placenta, they brought me the big mixing bowl that I had set out intentionally for this. and sits on the bed. The placenta goes into the bowl and sits in between Chad and I and still attached to the baby. So the
Okay, got
the
it.
cord is big, and you can see veins. That's 3, I think, veins that go throughout it that are kind of curly because it spins around inside it all, and it's pulsing, and it's got color to it, and it's warm, and that is the blood still pumping through it.
That's
Okay,
his blood.
that's his blood, my placenta, the blood
I
from the placenta and
his
him.
blood.
That's his. Yes.
The blood from the placenta is his blood. It's his
Correct.
blood type, yeah. Mhm.
Mhm, and the placenta was attached to my uterine wall, which was my blood feeding
Right,
into that and bringing
right.
oxygen to it. So it's oxygenated blood there for him to take in, and so we just leave that alone, and I tried to nurse and get him to latch, and it's so cool because when a baby is born in that way without any drugs, they call it the breast crawl, where if you lay them on your chest and you lay back, they squirm and wiggle, and they're trying to find the breast, and it's like, this newborn isn't just this floppy little thing. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they want to live. They're trying to live as well. So
He has a
we
banana head, right, at this point? Is
no,
his
he had
brain
this
still
perfectly
squished?
he had it was
Oh,
already relaxing, and I could see his soft
wow.
spot, and his head was just like perfectly shaped. It was amazing. So I just enjoyed my time there for a few hours, and then
But how long
yeah.
was he attached? Like, that's not a lotus birth. I
No,
keep
so
thinking, what's a
I'll
lotus
explain.
birth?
So what we did is we waited a couple hours, and then I asked the midwife to come in, and I didn't want to bother getting tools, or I didn't want to burn the cord, which is what some people do. That it cauterizes it at the same time, so you don't have to tie it off.
Mhm.
So that would be a natural option you could do at home, but it can take a long time, especially if you have a thick cord and it's fresh, and it's like burning a piece of meat or
Right,
tissue,
right,
you know,
right.
and it
Yeah,
doesn't
it would've
smell
burned
good.
through.
So I just wanted to cut the cord conventional way, and I didn't want to buy equipment for that. So I just was like, I'll call the midwife, and she can help us do that. So they have this little clamp, it puts a little band on it, and then they
Mhm,
have the special scissors that are super sharp, and
mhm.
Chud cut the cord, and that was 2 or 3 hours after he was born. By then,
Wow, 2 or
the
3
the
hours.
cord was completely white, totally flat, and a different like pliability, and cold. So there was no more blood in that cord at all. So that was when we removed that. No blood comes out of the cord or out of the baby at that point, and that part's done.
Could you overdo that? Could you leave it too long
Well, that's
and
what
a
a
bad
lotus
thing
birth
happens?
is.
Okay.
Okay, so a lotus birth is when you leave the cord attached until it dries up and falls off naturally.
How
So
how long is I mean, like, attached to the placenta?
attach from the placenta to the baby and keep it all together until it falls off
How
naturally.
long would that take?
That can take a up to a few weeks, but I think as soon as 5 days.
What would be the
So
point of that?
the point of that is just to be as crunchy as possible as far
But
far
I
as
mean,
I can see.
once the blood flow has stopped, I
Then
mean, you
there's
have
no
to give me a
reason not
better
to
reason
remove
for
it.
that.
I mean, if you wanna be more natural, I could have chewed through it, but, like, you know, some
Let's
of the
not
really
get
crunchy,
crazy.
hippie people, they'll put salt and herbs on the
Oh,
placenta
forget
so it
it.
doesn't start to sink.
Unless there's
I
a reason,
I
you know?
wanted to be able to move about the cabin. I did not
Yeah.
wanna be
Uh-huh.
tethered, have the baby tethered, so I wanted to be able to cut that. The
What'd you do
lotus
with the
birth
placenta?
is leaving it until it dries and
Right.
falls off, okay?
What'd you do with the placenta?
The plan is to bury it and plant a cherry tree on top because cherries are ripe
Yeah.
right around his birthday, so that we would have a special tree. But we
Super
didn't
cool.
get it. It was a heat wave at the time, and I was worried that the tree wouldn't survive if we planted then. So we have it in the
Yeah.
freezer. It's next to the
Oh,
beef
cool.
liver and everything else, and
Great.
we're gonna do that next spring. Yeah,
Great. Could you eat it?
I could have, and I did actually with my last birth. Um,
Like a
they
piece or the whole thing?
I had it dehydrated and encapsulated, so I was taking pills of it,
Oh,
and
cool.
they say it can help with your mood and stuff, afterwards, but my thought was, like, if you have a good pregnancy, you feel good during pregnancy, maybe you taking those pills would help postpartum, but I didn't feel good during my pregnancy, and so I was like, "I don't think I wanna eat
Yeah.
that if I didn't feel great."
Yeah. This
I think
time you did not feel
yes, so
great?
I didn't. Yeah, this time, this
Okay.
pregnancy was harder than the other 2.
So, are you mad at him for not being a girl?
No, no, I immediately did not care anymore
Yeah.
after I saw him.
Girls
It
are
was
very hard.
And I actually prayed and wished that I would never have a girl, like, for
Yeah.
years
They're
before,
look,
so
I
I
don't
don't
blame
think I'd
them.
get one now.
We're human being factories, which is like
Mhm.
an incredible thing to be, but
Yes.
everything else is secondary to that, as you would expect.
Yeah.
And because of that,
It's
I feel
intense.
like you're drafting in the wake of this, like, fabulous, creature that can create human beings with her body, but what she really isn't prioritizing is, harmony with her mom or
Yeah, and I
like
was tough I was tough
yeah.
on my mom, and she would
Hormones
always
are
say,
very
"Someday you'll have a girl and you'll know," and so I
hormones
was
are
always really afraid of that.
I think
But
the
yeah,
most
I mean,
powerful thing, yeah.
it is, but you know what? A a woman's eggs form in their ovaries while they are gestating in their mother. So if you have a grandkid, that grandkid was an egg inside your mom and
Wow.
inside of you. So, like, that part of it, I was like, "Wow," and then maybe my daughter would wanna have a home birth and, like, now I
Yeah,
just
that's a
have to hope
shame.
my sons marry cool chicks that want me to be there, during the birth and help with the baby.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I mean, you can the benefit of having a man when you live on a farm does not need to be, I
I
think,
know, I know.
emphasized. I think
I
you're
think we needed
strapping,
that.
strapping
Yeah.
ones too. So how much did this sweet baby, whose name I know but will not dox, how much did he
He
weigh?
weighed okay, so we were like, "How much" we were all kinda guessing. I was like, "He's big." It's one of the first things I said after I sucked the fluid from his mouth. I was like, "He's
Yeah,
a chunky."
yeah.
Like, he was fully formed a day before his due date, for a 3rd pregnancy
Right.
was cooked. He was a big boy. I was guessing I was like, "He's over 9 pounds. He's bigger than either of my other kids." And somebody else was
Ouch.
like, "Yeah, maybe 8 pounds, 11 ounces." That was how big my first was.
Mine too, yeah.
My
Mhm.
second was 7 pounds, 4 ounces, so he's quite a bit smaller. They weighed him on the midwife scale, and he was 10 pounds, 11 ounces.
Whoa!
Yes. No, no, 10, 10. Yes, 10 pounds, 10 ounces. Yeah.
Whoa!
Whoa is right. And he was 21 something inches long, which is big, and
That's
his head
nice, yeah.
was the biggest head that they had delivered,
How
that
big?
year. I can't remember right now, 15 centimeters, so I can't remember because I never but his
Yeah.
chest was just slightly bigger than his head, which they say is not there's nothing wrong with that, it's just, unusual, and so it's like, he's like a big barrel-chested dude
Yeah.
already. I was like,
Great.
that's why his chest kinda got we stopped
Yeah.
there again, but 10 pounds,
Put him
10
to
ounces
work. Wow, we
without
boy,
anybody attending me, I don't
I
think if
know.
I was in the medical system, they wouldn't have let me go to term, they
Right,
wouldn't have let me deliver vaginally
right,
without,
right,
like, saying
right.
that I had to have a C-section, they would have wanted to take the baby early,
Absolutely.
and then if
Yeah.
I would have been there when he started to become stuck, they would have said it was an emergency and tried to save me and the
Wow,
baby by
that's all
giving me a
true.
C-section. Yeah.
But wow, that you and at no point did it occur to you to panic?
No, it didn't feel like panic at all. Everything felt like it was just I was just in it and we were doing it. And I asked Chud that as well, and he said no. He's like, I could tell that you knew what you were doing the whole time. Like he was not worried at all. And
Yeah,
I,
wow.
he kept saying I was a badass afterwards.
Yeah, oh, it's true. It is absolutely true, and I was wondering if you thought you could have could you have done that with your first?
I could have done that with my first, but I think the process would have been so much longer that you would have to have such strong understanding of childbirth as a natural process and such strong trust in yourself because you're going to go through this for sometimes days of labor before you get
Yes,
to the point that I was pushing, and then
yes.
sometimes the pushing can be a long time too. So I would have really had to trust myself and because you get to that point where you're really tired or you're hungry and you're not sleeping and you're talking 24, 48 hours. I think anybody could do that for their first birth, but it's just really, really hard. You have to really trust.
But here's one of the many examples of the poverty of breaking the chain. The problem of not having that legacy, that heirloom wisdom, because what you should do is have your kids, your granddaughters, all the girls should come and rally
Yes.
around a birth
Mhm.
for their own benefit. Yes, you need some help maybe, but they should be there so they know what to do for others and for themselves. I mean,
If
that
you
that
witness
in
that natural
itself,
process, yes.
yeah, I mean, that in itself is a critical to humanity. It's critical to the very existence of humanity, and we've actually separated that. I always think taking care of the old people is important, but it's actually being able to deliver the next generation that is
Mhm.
a deal breaker for
So
future of
huge.
humanity.
So huge, and I think about the way I was born when I was, cut from my mother's womb, and now and Chud was as well, and it's like and now we have these 3 kids that were all born
Wow, you were
naturally
both
without
C-sections?
narcotics. Yes, we
Yeah,
were.
that's a function of your age probably.
Yes,
That exact moment.
it was a very
Yeah.
popular thing to do. So this was it was great, and it's, after the fact, we actually have had a really rough few months, like, we've had a lot of illness and the older folks in our
Oh, I
family.
was gonna ask
Yeah,
you.
we had
Yeah.
a death in the family. Paul's aunt passed away of cancer after just being diagnosed a few weeks prior and then
Oh,
choosing
boy.
hospice care. So it was like seeing her in a hospital bed in her home, and it's so uncomfortable and in so much pain, but, like, me feeling so, like, I'm so proud of her for choosing to do that
Yeah,
at home instead of
yeah,
trying treatments that are just going to fry you until you're
yeah,
done. Like,
yeah,
there's a time to just throw in the towel and say,
and
"I'm just
it's
gonna ride this out."
I've
And
thought
I
of that, yeah,
Yeah,
as a courtesy to your family, and I'm not suggesting recommending that to I'm just saying when you watch somebody go through that and it's
mhm,
so painful,
mhm,
you could understand why, if somebody did not wanna opt for that path, that would be
yeah.
respectable.
But it gave us a lot of pause to think about the purpose of pain in
Ye
life and in birth and in death, and I realized that that pain and discomfort during labor is there for a reason. It puts all these other hormones into play that get you, the adrenaline, the oxytocin, all the other things that happen, and then I think about the way we treat people as they're dying, and you witness this. There was there was a person there until hospice comes, and then hospice comes with narcotics, and then
Yeah.
the narcotics are almost more for the caregivers than they are for the person that's
Oh,
dying.
yes, it's absolutely to put them down.
And
My mother wouldn't have hospice, would
I
not have
that's
it.
I had wondered that myself,
That
and
was
that's
ballsy. She was
so
like,
amazing.
"Pray for me, not that I shouldn't suffer, but that I can take it." And when
Yeah,
somebody brought the hospice bed in, she said to me, "I was counting on you to not let them in,"
don't
but
do it. Yeah,
I couldn't get her out of the bed. It was a problem. It was a real and I knew she must have had a stroke or something. She was super fucked up, um, but they brought that bag of tricks and, she would absolutely not have it, and she did. I got down on my knees, I prayed to Jesus. I was like, "She's done her time."
yeah,
Don't make her do what she didn't wanna do, because she really didn't
yeah,
wanna I think she was worried about going out like a suicide, like asking
yeah,
for the
right?
pain reliever, and the morphine that they gave us
In a
was
dropper, so you can give it to a
well, you
person when
had
they're
to put a needle,
unconscious.
you have to put a like a
Yeah,
it's so concentrated. There's
mhm,
no and they never live more than a day or 2 after you start that.
yeah,
When people are having that incredible intense pain from cancer,
yeah,
I have no problem with relieving their pain, and I mean, just give it to them until the pain, but they bring it over and it's just in our minds, in our modern minds, you're just squaring it away. It's squared
yeah,
away, and it's a
mhm.
different experience.
And I think I have to wonder what processes are happening in our bodies to move us to this transition into the
Mhm.
other, when we're leaving here that we don't even know about, and no one can tell us about that on the other side. Like, I can tell you about my birth and how that went, but you can't tell, after you're dead, you can't tell somebody what it was like. And like the majority of people that are dying and die not just from an accident or something,
Mhm. Right.
if that don't make it to a hospital, we're
Yeah.
dying heavily medicated on narcotics.
Yeah.
And I think minimally, we have to have people be able to have autonomy in death as well as autonomy in
Agreed.
life and in birth, because you have to, if somebody says, no, I don't want treatment, it's not up to the family. It's not up to anybody else or whatever they should think. These things aren't guaranteed. It's just these other ways you can try to navigate things. It's not a guarantee of life. Just like the ultrasound and those different things we did isn't a guarantee of a healthy birth. It's just a choice that you have to make. So autonomy in birth, rather than doing it without a midwife or whatever's trendy, or being the most badass, or doing it at the hospital and having the full schedule the C-section. It just needs to be a person's choice, and hopefully it's an educated choice or a choice from intuition that they get to make thoughtfully. But whatever the case, it should be up to each person.
And it was a process, just like the birth process. It was a process. So I knew a couple of people who told me what to expect, like weird things. I like death rattle, like, I could
Yeah.
hear,
Yep.
I could smell it, like,
Fluid
I
filling
knew
the
she was coming.
lungs.
Yeah, I knew it was happening, and but for a while, like, for the weeks and months before, she was getting prepared. She was getting
Mhm.
prepared, and I was getting prepared. I mean, I
Yes.
I can't speak for my brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
but I was getting prepared, and I actually thought to myself, I'm like, "I'm ramping up the care here, and it's gonna hurt, like, more." But actually, because I don't live too near her, so I could just, you when people are not around, it's, like, easier to deal. But, but because of that arc, by the end, I'm praying to Jesus, to take her
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that was the time. And then, and what I'll never forget, when my daughter said, when I was going to give my mom a shower, and it was hard to do, it was it was ended up being her last one. I needed help, and my sister said she would help. My daughter said, "But I want to go to heaven too."
Huh.
So she was there to, and she's not even religious, but she observed this, and she said to one of my aunts who has no kids, when, "I'll be there for you. I'll be,"
Mhm.
and my sister said, "I'm gonna be in a nursing home. I've got the money to pay for it." And I was like, "Man,
That's
wrong answer.
yeah.
Wrong
That's
answer."
the kind of, attitude that our family mostly has, not my mom, fortunately, but with my maternal grandmother, my Italian grandmother, we went through that process with her in 2014 or 15, and, it was hard, and it was long, and
Yep.
slow,
Very
and
long.
but
Yes.
we all took turns, and, I do remember helping her in the bathroom and being like, "Yeah, this is me, signing the deal that I get to go to heaven." I'm, like, doing
Getting
my
freaking
the Lord's
crazy.
work,
No, I mean, it
you
gets
know?
crazy. I'm not gonna even say I
Yeah.
am not like a health person at all, and I'm like, "Hey, ma, you're dealing with an amateur, terrible instincts.
Yep.
You got the wrong girl." It's like, "I got the right girl." I was
I
like,
just
"Okay."
lucky my grandma was barely 5 feet tall with her
Oh, no.
perm, like,
No.
so I was
No, that's funny,
you
yeah.
could do the heavy lifting. But I think that it's just so important that not only do we, have the honor to take care of people as they exit,
Yep.
but we can show our kids that we're doing that so that they know that that's something that they're going to be able to do when they're older as well.
And there were 2 more things that happened that was a part of this process. One is her last, the last great-grandchild she had while she was alive was born 1 month before her 95th birthday, and I was like, "Okay, she's dying." So, even though it was a little teeny baby, they didn't wanna go in a car ride or whatever, they brought the baby. I have this beautiful picture, which I know you've seen. And another thing that happened just 2 days, so, before my mother died, and she was, incapacitated that last day, she told me to go get the neighbors. She said, "I know, some of them wanna say goodbye." So she really
Wow.
knew, and she brought, and the kids came over, and this one girl, she was like a 17-year-old girl. We were used to it, we were saying goodbye, and this girl was hysterical.
Oh,
She was
yeah,
hysterical. She didn't know how to process this, and
yeah.
we're like, at the end, you know, we were
You're all cried out by
exhausted, we're
then. Yeah,
laughing, yeah, like,
yeah,
we're just like, "See ya, ma,"
yeah,
and so, but my point is just the reason it's even coming up now, which I didn't think we'd talk about at all, but is that you're talking about this process that's a very natural process that you understood, and now we understand a little bit of it for your sharing, but experiencing it, there's nothing like that. Your friend really understands it now, and Chad understands it, and this same thing with my mother, and it's funny because I was trying to articulate why it was a good thing to do it this way, and she knew what she was doing, and she did
yeah,
not like pain, but she knew what she was doing, and it was a real gift. I'm not sure
yeah.
everybody, got that out of it that I did, but I
Well, that's amazing
really,
that you did, 'cause that
yeah,
you have to really be present with it to do that, and that's not
yeah,
easy. But
really
I
appreciate
remember
that.
that with my grandma as well, that she waited until her sister came and visited,
Yeah,
and it was just a few days after that where she went, but she was waiting. And
yeah,
this time we did have our new baby get to meet his aunt before she
yeah,
went, and she
yeah.
wasn't really, awake anymore at that point, but she heard him cry, and she said, "There's a baby in my
Ah,
house," and
yes,
motioned to bring him close, so that
yeah,
she was aware he was there, and that felt meant a lot.
and I will say for people's comfort, that day before she whatever happened, she maybe had a stroke or something, I don't know, she was in bed, she was totally peaceful, she wanted to die in her own bed, and she said, "I just didn't know it would be like this. I didn't know dying would be so peaceful."
Aw,
Yeah. So,
aw.
yeah. So that's good to know. And even when she was totally out of it and nobody could reach her at all, she said one thing. I said to her, "Ma, are you in pain?" And she said she couldn't even open her eyes. She said, "Not at all."
Oh,
And I was like, "Right on." So, take a little comfort if you ever wonder what they're really going through. She
yeah.
communicated, and now we know, and now we can do it if we want.
So maybe there is a purpose to pain, and maybe there is a reason that these things, these processes take place the way they do, and maybe intervening with them so intensely as we have throughout history and now become the norm isn't necessarily the right way to do it, or maybe it's definitely not the only way to do it.
Well, 2 things. One is it's kinda reminds me of childhood vaccines. We've gotten rid of childhood disease. Let's just say they got rid of childhood diseases on purpose, and now we get shingles and cancers and
Ugh,
everything, so maybe
uh-huh.
pain has a purpose. But I wanted to know, were you in a tremendous amount of pain? A
I
tremendous
wouldn't
amount of
call
pain?
it pain. It was very
Yes, I
intense.
understand,
There
yeah.
there was when he was crowning, they call it the Ring of Fire, and it's friggin' intense. And yes, I did tear and I declined. I didn't need stitches or anything. I said, "No, thank you." But I tore in the place where they had cut me in my first
Right.
birth.
I
So
believe
I
that, yeah.
tore then in
Yeah,
my second birth, I tore again at that
yeah,
scar, and I tore this time at that
yeah,
scar again.
yeah, it's uncool.
So who knows if I wouldn't have ever torn at all if they never would have cut me the first time, right?
Yeah,
But yes, it was very painful. It was extremely intense. It's earth shaking, but it's not
yeah,
like you just hit your head and then you're crying or you cut your finger. It's like it's so involved and all consuming that
yeah,
during the moment of being in it, you can't quantify that or name that as pain. And then as soon as it's over, the flood of these endorphins, hormones,
yeah,
whatever, give you such a just this rush that you can't even remember that it ever hurt, and you almost want to like get back on the roller coaster right away. It's like,
yes.
let's have another baby. That was so cool. That's
The
so amazing.
aftermath of the natural birth was super cool, but and I was in total, like, I will describe it as pain. It was very intense, like, thought it was total pain. However, I did have the observation that I had no fear. Okay, so, whether I should have had fear or not, I don't
Hmm.
know, but I had no fear. I felt this
Yeah.
pain was not a pain of you're being injured, and the liberation, the separation of the pain from the fear made the pain absolutely bearable. You could bear
Yes.
it.
So that is such an important thing to say. It's like the pain is a way of signaling to your body that there's something happening or something wrong or whatever. And I actually injured my shoulder a few weeks postpartum, and it was so bad that I could not like reach
Yeah.
my right arm couldn't reach over to like nurse the baby. I couldn't lift
Oh.
my arm or move it at all. And to me, that pain hurt so much worse because
Mhm.
it was like alarming. It was telling me
Yes.
something's wrong, and I didn't know what it was, and I was worried, did I dislocate it and I can't tell? I had no idea. So during that time of being worried about what would happen later and how I couldn't care for the baby, I was really concerned to the point where it took me to urgent care to get an x-ray and just rule
Wow.
out being, and I haven't been to the doctor since,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's over
Yeah.
5 years at
I'm glad
least,
you
like.
did that though, because you can ignore things like that that will not heal right.
Yes,
You
so I
know,
needed to
y
just rule that out, and then I started to it was an amazing experience actually looking back because I was able to source from my local community of people I've met and come in contact with. I have a friend who was a doctor that gave up her license after 2020, and she has a healing ministry, PMA, and she was able to like troubleshoot with me and give me some things I wouldn't have thought about, and we got heavy dose of magnesium and like some other things, and just a couple weeks later, I'm like moving my arm like it didn't happen.
I will I didn't emphasize that magnesium. I had terrible, like, hormonal issues, like, really, really bad girl stuff,
Mhm.
and magnesium completely resolved it. I mean, people have gotten hysterectomies over less, and
Right.
magnesium resolved it, so have confidence in that. Do you have time to talk about a couple of other things?
Yeah.
You wanna bring the sweet if the baby cries, can we talk to him for a few minutes at the end?
If he cries, I
Alright, in the
I
last
think he's
15 seconds.
handling it.
Oh, if he's sleeping, we're not
I
gonna get to
well,
see him at all.
well, it's a long journey to find where they could be out in the woods.
Well,
I have no
somebody could
idea.
fetch him. Okay, so, but I really more important than that, I will come visit him in person
You
if you
should.
don't tell
He's
me not
so
to.
cute.
But if you could there were a couple of other things I wanted to talk about with
Yeah.
you, which is something that I had never heard of, and it's a great expression, the 4th trimester.
Yes,
What is
right?
that?
It sounds funny because there's
Of
3 in
course.
try, right? But what this means is that you're not done until a postpartum period of you bonding with the baby. You're constantly nursing, you're healing from your birth, and there's this time as a lot of cultures consider it 40 days, some 60. There's a lot of traditions in other cultures in India and Mexico and China and Japan of the way you care for a woman after she's given birth. And that includes rest and keeping her warm and keeping her hydrated, soft, easy to digest, nourishing foods. And women are really catered on by other women in the community. And whether that be some wealthier places in like Japan, they actually go to a hotel where they are taken care of for like 2 months by a full staff that will make sure she's showered. And in India, the Ayurvedic tradition, they're giving you massages with warm oils afterwards and oiling your hair. So in
No
China,
wonder they have so many babies there.
I know that sounds dreamy. I would just do it just for that.
Worth it.
And
My
then
mother yeah, yeah, my
in
mother liked having babies so she could go to the hospital
so you
because
could get a
she used to
rest for
stay
a
there for
minute,
5 days,
get a
yeah,
break from the other
yeah,
kids, driving you crazy. So,
exactly.
I think that in America, we've totally abandoned that tradition, and we are not built in the communities as we were before. We don't have large families anymore, we're not, living close together when we do have large families, and a lot of people are just kinda left alone, and so if you start to research this and you're like, I need to do this, I need to rest for those 40 days." Well, it's not the husband's job to take all of that on, especially
Yeah,
when there's already other kids and there's work to be done outside of
real
the
work,
home.
real
And
work.
they're taking, their job outside of the home, the taking care of the kids, all the work that you do at home that you're now not doing, cooking, cleaning, laundry, all of it, feeding the dog, feeding
Chickens?
the chickens, all of the things, right? And so in hindsight, I wish I would have tried to kind of maybe even hire some kind of
Yeah,
support system because the women that I know in my family don't think that you need to heal from that because they didn't get to. And if anything, even if they think they should have, they're kind of like, "Well, I didn't do it." So why would you
well,
get a break,
yeah,
right?
the behavior has to be modeled.
Yeah.
You don't know what way to go. When I lived in Dallas, maybe because the kid had Down syndrome, but generally, we all we all brought dinner every day for, like, 2 weeks, which,
Yeah.
it's not nothing. I mean, it's
No, that's
something.
huge. That's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
Yeah, and dinner is
Dallas was
usually too
way
much food,
closer. Yeah,
leftovers. So what I did for myself as the best I could is just what I love to do, food preservation, of course, is I was making soups and stews and all these really good things, lots of bone broth, and freezing things and canning things so that it would be really easy for Chud to just warm something up and bring it to me. I ate a lot of scrambled eggs with butter, like, that's
nice.
super nourishing and easy to make, and just spent as much time as I could in bed, relaxing, resting, because 'cause you're nursing, like, I mean, as soon as they're done, they're nursing again. Like,
Yeah,
it's constant for a few weeks.
yeah,
Um,
especially
but
at 11 pounds almost.
he
He's
was
gonna be
hungry.
hungry.
But, he could eat more at a time, so that actually translated to, I think, the
Oh,
first night, he slept 4 hours in a row,
yeah,
and the
like my
doctors would be
car,
like,
big tank.
it would be
Yeah.
like an alarm at a doctor's, if you were at the hospital, "No, no, no, you need to wake the baby up and feed them again." And it's like,
That's
"No, he's
I would
satiated."
never do
Yeah,
that.
don't wake up a sleeping baby.
Never.
So, yeah, he
Yeah,
sleeps usually, like, almost up to 6 hours at a time now, at night. I just nursed once at night, and he's only 3.5 months. That seems better than my
wow.
last one for sure.
He was
Um,
so perfect, the picture you sent me right away, he was just so perfect, so
oh, he's
smooth
so
and
cute.
clean, he
We
looked like
call him a meat potato because he's like a little potato made of meat. He's so cute. Oh, and he's just
so
just
cute.
the happiest little guy now. He's smiling and giggling and like he loves his brothers, and he's just like, if he's awake, he's happy. If he's asleep and he's waking up, he just these soft little cries, and then you're nursing again, and it's just amazing. But I think I
Can
think
I
if
put the
you
picture up?
sure,
Okay.
yeah. If you have a chance to be around someone who's just giving birth, don't ask them if there's something that you could do for them. Just bring them food and drop it off, or ask, "When is a good time for me to pick up your other kids and take them to a park?"
Exactly. That's what you do, is
That's
take
it.
care of the other
And
kids.
drop the food off when you pick up the kids and feed the kids when they're out. That's how you can really, really, help a new mom. And I mean, it's hard when it's your first because you're getting used to just being so, like all of your energy is going into taking care of somebody else. But it's almost harder when it's your second or your third because you have those older kids that are expecting that same level of care as that they always have, and you're just out of commission. So I think, I hope that I have friends that'll have babies soon so that I can do better, than I ever had before. "Oh, can I bring you anything?" Or bringing somebody a pie or something useless because I picked it up at the grocery. No, like nourishing food, bone broth, like meat. Bring them something to eat. Don't ask for permission,
Yeah,
but don't
nourishing
stay,
food, I
don't
agree.
linger, don't ask to hold the baby. Just drop off the food and get out of there. That's what I would recommend for sure.
See, I have a picture, but is that wow, he's giant. Hold on. I'm trying to find the little one where he's on the sheet.
Oh, he's so cute.
He's
I sent you a
so
couple now, yeah. Yeah, he was it was I was surprised. When I first looked at him and I said he was over 9 pounds, in my head, I was like, "He's over 10 pounds." But
oh,
I
here it
couldn't
is, right
really
here.
imagine that I had given birth to a 10-pound baby, but I gave birth
Well,
to an almost
you're so
11-pound
healthy.
baby.
Here we go.
And even that larger, birth weight is, like, pathologized in the medical industry. It's like, "What's wrong with him if he's so big? Oh, we need to, make sure he's breathing okay." It's like, he was big, he's long, and he's tall, and both Chud and I'm almost 6 feet tall, and Chud's 6'1". It's like, we're just big people, we have big babies. It's totally
Yeah,
fine.
you should. I'm showing my like, super bad skills here because I can't figure out if it's not, like, in an internet thing. Let me see. I might be able to do it. Let me see, 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 see,
Oh,
see,
I
see.
wish I could just get him, but I've been
No,
listening.
you
I
don't have to
think
get him.
they
You don't have to get him.
they exited, so that means
No,
they're
you
outside in the
can't.
backyard.
You can't. Certainly couldn't wake him anyway.
I don't yeah, Chad came home to have the kids, and he woke up right before I came down here. And I was thinking of bringing him, but I'm like, he's to that point where he's grabbing the cord to the headphones, and he's starting to talk loudly, cooing, beyond that now. He's just kinda babbling. It's such a cute age. It
Well,
all goes by so fast too.
this is gonna be uh, a really old picture,
The first
and
one.
yes, and very oh, for fuck's sake. No, I can't do it. I can't
Can't
do
do
it.
it. It's okay. It's everybody was teased.
Ah, that's
Yeah, I
stupid.
just, I don't I I don't have anything on me either because 'cause we're so low tech. I have a real camera. That's where I've got all his pictures.
Wow,
So,
really?
yeah. And he's the cutest ever. He's just, he's sucking his thumb too. I've not had a thumb sucker. I've
Oh,
given my
yeah.
first 2 pacifiers, and I decided this time that I would not do that.
Well,
Um,
I
he's
always just
finding
let
his own.
them have the pacifier until I can't believe I can't show this picture. I just always had the pacifier until they outgrew it. I just never, like, bought them a new one.
Oh, uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
they would just hold it, and then they would,
My
like
my my middle kid was just given his up, right when I was pregnant. So it was like, I don't wanna do that
wow,
again.
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Because what was he, 3 at that point?
Yes, and he was still nursing when I first got pregnant too. So he was gonna be the baby forever. So he's a little disappointed of getting bumped out of that role, I think.
Yes, that hurts. That hurts. But he is a very
Yeah.
nice kid. So what one thing I wanted to say is, you posted such an adorable video of him, of your middle guy, the blonde one, uh,
Mhm.
holding the chicken.
Oh, yes,
That
yeah,
was
on my YouTube channel,
so
Preserving Today.
sweet. Oh my gosh, that was the sweetest thing I ever saw.
Yes.
And when was that? Are you up and about, or like, are was that a while ago? Are you
Uh,
back to
that was in the
producing?
springtime. Yes, okay, so, I had a few weeks where I really took it slow, but, like, today, I was canning turkey, broth that I had made from the turkeys that we processed 2 days ago. So, we processed chickens and turkeys, on last Sunday, and We have a lot of meat chicken, or we have a lot of laying hens, and we get a lot of eggs, sell eggs, eat a lot of eggs. The garden was pretty good this year, although less so. I'm working on a new video showing the popping corn that we grew. So we grew a popping corn variety of corn this year, and we actually made it work. It was so exciting to like pop corn that you grew and you picked it
Yeah.
off, you dry it, and you pick it off the cob. So that's one of my next videos on my YouTube channel. So yeah, we're just doing all the things. It's kind of moving towards our quieter time of the year where we won't have Chud won't have meat birds to move and feed. Our turkeys are gone, which is good because they would have been really, really loud because they're nearby the basement window here. And we just have the laying hens, which are pretty easy to take care of, and the garden is being put to bed. So, but other than planting garlic, I'm pretty much done with the garden for this year. And yeah, homeschooling is kind of the focus this time of year. Just got my oldest kid in an improv comedy class at the local theater, which he's liking. And
Oh, wait, the oldest one?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that sounds
Yes.
right.
It makes sense for him. He's funny. But I had to like have the talk like, do you know that most of like the jokes we make at home might not be appropriate for like
Yes.
a youth class before, we go into the city and you hang out with these other kids? And he's like, yeah, I know. So I think he's doing good. That's where you learn to read the room, as they say.
My trusty producer told me how to do this. I'm so excited. Here we go. I'm super
Okay.
excited. It's a great
Yes.
picture.
It's great. Homeschool, when you do it the way we do, is really fun. It's just kind of exploring whatever we're all interested in, and just getting lost in doing cool stuff. Oh, there he is.
Yay!
That one I couldn't get him to stop moving his little hands, so it's all
Oh,
blurry.
yeah.
But
How
that
old
was
was
that was
he
the that
there?
was like 14 hours old. That
Yes.
was the next
Yes, I
morning.
thought that was right away. Look at that.
Yeah,
He's
that
not a
was the next
banana
morning.
head. He's
No.
looking around. He's awake. His shoulders aren't broken. All the things I look for. He doesn't have Down syndrome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I
Yeah,
mean, not that there's anything
he's
wrong with Down syndrome. I'm not
yeah,
saying there's
I
anything
had the
wrong with
full
that.
cone head because before they took me C-section, they had tried to suction me out, and then they used forceps, and so
Mhm.
yeah, I had bruises, and I was this cone head, and then oh, it's so cute. You had a little cone head. I'm like,
He's
that sounds
Yeah,
violent.
it's not
It's
cool.
not nice.
He
Yeah.
looks great. I actually have a picture, but it's oh, no, I don't have any other pictures of him, I don't think. Do
Oh,
I?
okay. Yeah, I sent a couple, but I wasn't through the same email thread, so it could be hard to find. He's cute and only got him cuter. Like this like 3 to 6 months age, 3 to 9 months is just so cute. That's when they're chunky and they still can't really get away from you, and they just like
Oh,
don't
here's
mind
another.
if you give them 100 kisses. It's like they're starting to just babble and grab things, and he's so aware. It's just great. Like babies are excellent. You should show a picture of what I looked like when I was a teenager. I never thought I would be a mom having this
There you
conversation.
go.
Oh yeah, and that's probably 3 weeks old only. And so yeah, he's just like, look at his eyes, you know what I mean? He was looking
Yeah,
at me. I had the camera down and he was looking at me.
and his
It's like,
skin.
mhm. He did have the little baby acne for a little
Yeah, I see
while,
that, yeah.
and then that cleared up pretty quick, and he had a little bit of cradle cap, and it cleared up, and I didn't give him he had his first bath last night at, like, 3.5 months. So,
What?
I've
Tell me
just
about
been
that. That sounds wrong.
just wiping him off, it's not like I don't clean his diaper area, like, he's just wiped off when he's dirty, and then I just didn't fully submerge him until yesterday, and he loved it. He was just so cute splashing around, and it was the best thing ever. But yeah, they don't need a bath right away. At the hospital, they take them away and whisk them
I
over to a
know.
sink and scrub them off with like, Hybocleanse or something.
Yeah.
That's totally not necessary. He just gets wiped off and he's good to go.
So, I'm gonna let you go, but I wanna just, tell you, like, I love your videos, and it looks like some of them have gone viral, it looks like.
Well, I don't know about viral or what you'd call that, but
Alright,
I
well,
have
what was
some
your
that have
most
like
I
a
mean,
lot.
yes, tens of thousands of,
I have like 53,000 views on a
yeah.
one how I
Which
make
one is that?
gelatin fruit gummies. So like gummy candy. You know
Okay.
why that's so popular? 'Cause
Why?
people are searching for like how to make CBD gummies because they're so expensive.
That's fantastic. Well, I'll tell you, I I actually buy gelatin gummies to get gelatin.
Yes,
not because
so
I
you
want
make them
gummies.
yourself. It's just
Yeah.
buy gelatin powder and any kind of fruit juice, coconut water, whatever, kombucha, whatever you wanna use as a liquid. Just bloom the
Oh,
gelatin and then
I should be I have,
warm it
like,
up and until it
a lot
dissolves.
of CBD oil. I should,
And then you can make your own
yeah,
CBD gummies. Yeah, so watch the video, there's links there to the molds that I use and stuff. So, yeah, I finally have enough attention that I've monetized the YouTube channel, so the stupid ads that they play that
thank
I can't
goodness.
control, I now get paid for, like, a fraction of a penny
Oh,
each time.
it gives you almost nothing, but I'm
Yes.
happy. I
It's
mean, at
exciting
least,
anyway, yeah.
yeah,
I
they
got
don't realize that you're actually more subversive than I am with your teaching people how to live off the grid. All
Yeah.
I'm doing is complaining, about the government, whatever. I don't know why
Yeah,
I get
it's just
demonetized.
sauerkraut videos are much more dangerous
I
than that.
know, much more dangerous. How to have
Yeah.
your own baby at home, that nothing could be more dangerous than that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going there on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, no, well,
Like, how to dehydrate your placenta and encapsulate it. Yeah,
but
preserving.
last thing I will ask you, before I want you to tell people how to, the things that you're most proud of and what you're back up to and when they can look for you again, all of
Mhm.
that stuff people want to know. But how do you deal with the personing? Like, don't they, you have to get a birth certificate? Like, are you
Oh,
okay
sure.
with that? Are you doing
Mhm.
that? Is it complicated?
So there was a lot of thought put into that in 2020 before we had our second, and we kinda came to the conclusion that it would take a lot of understanding that we don't have to be able to try to navigate the world without having a birth certificate for our kids, because we are already in that we're in the matrix and we want our family to be whole, so we did decide just to get a birth certificate. So that is the decision we made, but I don't think anybody should enter into that lightly. Think about it, because if you are the kind of person that has that legal mind that can look into that and feel comfortable with it, you have to be able, though, to give the kid what they need to move forward in life and have what they need to be able to go and get a job and, like, file their taxes or whatever they need to do to not be held against their will in a prison. So you have to, like, go all in, and we don't have that kind of mind to be able to do that.
And there's also the structure of, this facade, whatever society, whether it's facade or not, it's it's way too layered, complex, and deceptive for a child or even a young adult to understand.
Yes.
And for you to try to tell your kids that they that this system is a holodeck or whatever, it actually, I feel like psychically and psychologically, it may be actually too much information for the person
Yeah.
who needs to accept that you made that decision. So
Right.
I'm talking about, I've had teenagers, we had COVID lockdown, whatever. I'm telling
Yeah.
them this is bullshit. And some of that stuff is okay. And some of that stuff causes uh, like a, borderline, like a mental crisis,
Sure, or that
and I
they
just
wanna rebel against you and run towards the system, like, that's
it's
not what we
oh,
want either.
yeah, but it was I feel like psychologically virtually impossible to accept some of the things I was trying to explain to them
Mhm.
so that they would join me in protecting themselves against this
Yeah.
psyop, and
Yeah.
really I ended up having to give up some of that fight, which was
Right.
a terrible thing. I can't even think about it without crying, really,
Mhm.
it was terrible.
Yes.
But, uh, it was a question of mental health,
Yeah.
and you can't get around that, and you can't, if you impose that, then they will not, like, only rebel against you, but could hate you forever. Look at that
Yeah.
woman who wrote that book. There's nothing my mother hated, and then let you go. She absolutely hated, like, Angela's Ashes. This
Mhm.
story, it was a bestseller. I picked it up. She was like, "What are you reading that crap for? All they do is is beat up on this guy. He had all those kids. He was working, and I wouldn't even mind it except for they waited till he was dead till they wrote the book." So, and so there was a chick who wrote a book about growing up in an off the grid Christian world.
Mm.
And I knew it was going to be bad news when I went to one of my kids' high school lectures, and the principal, the headmaster, was saying,
Mm.
"Oh, I read this great book. Everyone should read it." And I'm
Oh
thinking to
gosh.
myself,
Yeah, I don't know anything about it, but I think they made a movie or something, like, I know that name.
Well, there's the Hillbilly Elegy one, but then there's this woman, yeah, it was which was the JD Vance one. I'm sure you're thinking about the right one, not the wrong one. But once this, I was like, wow, that could be interesting. And I was like, this guy is recommending it. It all it's going to do is absolutely crap on this guy who may be a total psycho who kidnapped the kids and held them under, against their. I have no idea. I'm not reading it, but whatever. It's so demonized to have an off the grid upbringing that if you isolate them from the world, I think that you will have a hard time keeping them sane and
Mhm,
good.
and
So I
that's
think you have to compromise.
that's where
That's
we live. This is where we are. We're not far from a city. We're not off grid. We're
yeah.
completely in it. Chud works off 5 days a week, at a job off the farm. It's what it is. What we can control is that I'm not sending them to prison for children. They're not going to public school.
So
They're
great.
we're able to have conversations. We're able to explore together and have fun. And I just want my kids to grow up liking me still when they're adults, and being able to discover all the mysteries of the world on their own, and having me learn from them while we do it.
One thing I was gonna say, I'm thinking like, well, there's probably nothing I could really teach them. I used to be able to tutor math, so if anyone needs Zoom math, I will help.
Cool.
But I told you we bought this house last year that has a vineyard in the back, and we
Yeah.
made wine this year. We
That's so our
we
making.
did not. My husband
Yeah.
made wine. I, like,
Cool.
held things while he poured it. And, I guess we are making wine, but it smells good, it tastes good. I mean, you can tell it's just so amazing and, um, just such a cool creative experience, and I feel like that's maybe something that you aren't doing yet. I can
I'm not.
share
We don't
that.
drink alcohol. I mean, the alcohol I drink is what
Yeah, kombucha.
ferments. Yeah, they have slight amounts of alcohol, but we don't drink, so we haven't done wine. But wine and mead, I've thought about that. But the
Mhm,
fruit crusher, the fruit
mhm.
press that you use is similar to the one that I have, and that's my other video that's really taking off right now. Is like, how do I make apple cider with a fruit crusher and a cider press on my
Can I
channel?
make apple cider with that?
Oh yeah,
With my
you
wine
can.
thing?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and
It
it's so
does take
good.
everything out. It takes all the stems and seeds, and you can I don't know how
And
you
you
get the
just
skins off, but
squeeze that juice out and then leave it on your counter and you'll have sparkling cider, and leave it for longer and then you'll have hard cider. It's like that easy as long as it's not pasteurized. So you should check out that video. It just shows how I use that equipment with our Honeycrisp apples that we grow here.
I love
It's so
Honeycrisp.
good.
I absolutely love them. I've
Makes
already
good
texted
juice.
my husband, like, we are making cider. I love cider. I can't
Yeah.
drink beer. We all love it,
Yeah.
fermented or not. So, okay, tell everybody, everything about where they can find all your stuff, what you're most excited about, what you're gonna do next.
Sure, I'm having to focus my energy obviously because I'm doing the homeschooling and have the new baby, but I'm still putting a video a week out on the YouTube channel, which is called Preserving Today. So you can find it at youtube.com/@preservingtoday. And you can subscribe there, please, and watch my videos, leave comments. I answer all my comments. So that's also a really good way to get a hold of me if you're curious about something I'm working on, commenting on my video. I still have an Instagram. It's Preserving Today as well. Preservingtoday.com is the blog, which I will get back to making new posts soon. But until then, there's a lot of resources on there if you're trying to get into doing this food preservation or fermentation stuff. And then greenerpostures.com still has information about the workshops that you can purchase, as well as podcasts and stuff that I do. Greener Postures is what we call the homestead. And that's what we do for the Agora and like the freedom part of the community. And Preserving Today is the other side that all the normies can go there as well and just feel good about making sauerkraut. Either way, I want people to increase their diversity in their gut microbiome and enjoy all those tasty foods.
And you do such a nice job of it. Like, it's really visually pleasing, those like the sauerkraut and stuff, like those kind of videos. I just love the way you do it. And I did try to do that myself with cocktail videos, and I was not very
That's
successful. So what
I'm
you did
surprised
is
I'm good
really
at it because
good.
I'm really low tech.
Yeah,
But
no, but you have an aesthetic though, I think that
thank
is
you.
what
Yeah,
you bring to
thanks.
it.
I
Yeah.
think I'm most excited about a new video that it's not getting much attention, but this recipe is so good. You would love it. Okay. Carrot cake sauerkraut. Sounds insane.
Sounds amazing. And it's my metabolic eating thing.
But you
is all
can
about
have
carrots.
all of those foods, right? And then
Yeah.
you can eat that, no gluten, no sugar, and it's like shredded carrot, shredded apple, some raisins, some nuts, and the spices that you would get in like a spice cake or carrot cake, and you make it like a
Yes.
sauerkraut, and it's so good. It's like really, really good. So
How long does it take to ferment?
just a couple days because of all the sugar in the apple and the carrot, it was like 3 to 5 days.
And
Yeah.
it's perfect for fall.
Yes, it is. Yeah, very seasonal. So it's seasonally
I'm
appropriate. So if you're
super
missing
excited.
like your fall sweets, pumpkin spice and everything nice or whatever the cliche term is, you should
Yeah.
check that one out.
That's super cool. Okay, I'm gonna put all that stuff in the show notes. I may impose upon you to help me make a list if I
Sure.
can't just,
I
intuit
have a
it.
link tree, so I could just send you that and then
Okay,
all the
that's
stuff's right
great,
there. Yeah.
and I'll find that particular recipe. Uh, I am really grateful and honored that I think I might have been your last interview and your first interview
It might have
I
been, yes.
in the bookends around this sweet new baby,
Mhm.
and, it's just a real, real privilege to know you. This is one of the great things about podcasting are the connections that we've made, I
Yeah,
think.
absolutely. Yeah, who would have thought that I would have written a fan letter in 2020 and now
Ah,
we're like best friends.
I think Chad wrote the letter.
You did first, yeah, because I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, she
Yes,
wouldn't wanna
and
talk
you're
to me."
so different from who I thought, I I guess I just when you're talking about, like, having a barn and stuff, and I couldn't I was definitely thinking Arkansas, I was just deep
No, this is
Arkansas.
Northwest. We're
Yeah,
like
I mean,
30 minutes drive from Vancouver, BC, like,
it
this
was
is yeah,
so different, but
it's,
if I'm
yeah.
invited, my son who loves you too is gonna come with me to come, check out the latest on greener pastures in
Yes,
person.
you should do that, it would be wonderful.
Well, hang on there. Don't go away. I'm going to say goodbye to all of you. Thank you so much for coming. We had such a lovely show of people watching and soon to be listening. Thank you so much, Lanni of Greener Pastures and Preserving Today. This is Monica Perez.